everything up and ready for you now. Hopefully you are in. Let's see. The classic definition of consideration is found in Curry and Misa, which clearly that is not properly presented, should be italicised. So, classic definition in Curry and Misa, which effectively states that the person to whom a promise is made must either confer a benefit on the promisor or must incur a legal detriment. The benefit/detriment is enough to demonstrate consideration. Is that statement true, provided consideration is sufficient? True. However, if you can't find the benefit detriment, then provided you find that consideration is made pursuant to a bargain, that'll be sufficient. False. You need to be able to demonstrate that the benefit detriment is given as part of the bargain. Or false. If you can't find benefit detriment, then look for a bargain. Only 7 of you have been able to get a response. Oh, 9 in time. Let's have a look. So, roughly even. So that statement is false. You need to be able to demonstrate that a benefit detriment is given as part of the bargain. It's a twofold test. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. So this alternative answer, and you are rushing, I do get that, suggests this answer here suggests that people are thinking of them as an alternative test. If you can't find one, then you find the other, but we actually need to see both. How are we going? Victor? That was bloody quick. It's so quick if you got 1,000 points. I'm thinking you guessed, but... okay. What is consideration? Brace yourself. The next slide will clearly give you a number of different options. Pick the one that you think is most appropriate. Something required to ensure a promise is binding. Without a promise, it won't be binding. Something given in return for a promise. Something given in return for a promise required by the common law to ensure a promise is binding. Got 10 seconds left. A few more people are already in this time. It's a bit mean to start with such a hard question. Lots of people popping in. And so, more than half of you, or just on half of you, have gotten that right. So again, this is a good definition. Something given in return for a promise that the common law requires for that first promise to be binding. So the one at the top, it's not a terrible definition, but it is not as complete as the one down the bottom. Similarly, the other two, they're just not as complete. We're looking for the best definitions here. Holly, taken some ground there. What is meant by the phrase, consideration must be sufficient, but not necessarily adequate? We're going to spend more time on this next week, but I want you to start thinking about this concept. It needs to be something of value according to the law. It needs to be equal to the value of the promise. $1 would not be considered adequate consideration, or the benefit or detriment to the promisee must have the same value as the promisor's promise. Sorry, I keep saying the word problem today. Okay, 2, 1, 0. Let's have a look. And the vast majority of you have seen that this idea that consideration needs to be sufficient, other language we use for that is legally sufficient. So it needs to be something of value as far as the law is concerned. It doesn't necessarily be equal in value or adequate to compensate the promisor for the value of the promise that they've been given. And we will talk a bit more about that as we proceed as well. Still up there. Which of the following represent legally sufficient consideration? Undertaking a legal duty, a benefit received by a promisee on acceptance of an offer, a detriment suffered by a promisee will be good consideration when the detriment is incurred by the promisee at the promisor's request and in reliance upon the promise, part payment of a debt. this is a mean question. This should be in next week's pack because this bit we're not covering this week. Sorry, that's a hangover for the change in the way that the topics work. Apologies for that. So, even so, you guys are on it for the vast part. So, a detriment suffered by promisee will be good consideration. So, something that the person who is making, who is receiving an offer, effectively, agreement to suffer that detriment will be a good consideration if it's incurred at the promisor's request and in reliance on the promise. So the case there is it's the one where Lord Muckety Muck sits and rots away in jail. It'll come to me in a moment, but it's a case we're reading for next week, so you guys are ahead of yourselves. And Victor, you are the winner by an absolute tiny bit, just beating Holly there. But anybody there in the top 10 should be patting yourselves on the back right now. Clearly you've done preparation, or you're just guessing well for this week and for next.